Crude oil dominates Nigeria's economy, accounting for 90% of export earnings. The country has the largest oil and gas reserves in sub-Saharan Africa, with an estimated 37 billion barrels of oil and more than 200 trillion cubic feet of gas. Yet for decades, the virtually ungovernable industry has been plagued by poor leadership, eye-watering corruption, and environmental degradation. Now, in the last 20 years, multiple governments have attempted to pass an all-encompassing petroleum industry bill, PIB, the scope and complexity of which has ensured repeated failure. The new bill, which has passed its first reading in the Senate, when passed into law, could offer a more radical departure from the past norms. The bill also plans for the selling of shares in the reformed NNPC, the replacement of regulatory bodies, and the reduction and streamlining of royalties. Nigeria steps closer to major reform of its crucial but chaotic oil industry. The major questions are now, what is at stake and what will change finally when PIB becomes law? Well, joining me now live from our Abuja studios to provide answers to some of these questions and of course more, he's an oil and gas management consultant, is Mr. Michael Faniron. Thank you very much, Mr. Faniron, for your time. I appreciate this.
Thank you for having me. Good afternoon.
Now, a lot has been said about the petroleum industry bill. What is more to this bill? There have been lots of ups and downs regarding to this document. Tell us what it really stands for.
Okay, so the Petroleum Industry Bill, simply called the PIB, is a set of law that is meant to repeal the outdated laws that is governing the oil and gas sector. The last act that we have was the Act of 1969 that is governing the sector. So this set of laws actually meant to jumpstart the reform of the oil and gas sector, repeal these outdated laws, and give us new set of law that are a bit forward-looking, that are that we promote the reform of the industry. It's the beginning, not the ending in itself, but we jumpstart the reform, the needed reform of the industry.
Close to 20 years. Are you sure something different could happen at this time?
Optimistic about this time that we are going to pass the bill. Why did I say so? I've been involved in the PIB for more than 10 years now. But this time around, is it not just about the willingness of the executive or the legislature to pass the bill? It is because it has become imperative. Now we are facing a revenue issue in Nigeria. And you know that oil and gas is the mainstay of our economy. The crude oil provides about more than 70% of our revenue and provides about 90% of our foreign exchange earnings. So we can't do with the oil, without the oil and gas. Now, if we don't reform the industry, then that means the natural resource that God has given unto us is going to be wasted. Now, for 20 years, we've been trying to pass this bill. It has not passed. But during that period, other countries have moved on. A lot of things have happened. Before, Nigeria used to be the bride in the region, but now oil has been discovered in Ghana, in Angola, and in other countries very close to us. And they have passed their own enabling laws. So they have actually made their own industry more attractive. So the investor now have more choices of where to go, whether to come to Nigeria or to go to other countries. So it's not give it or take it or leave it. We are no more take it or leave it situation. So we actually have to now get investor to come to us. So we've lost a lot in terms of not passing this for the past 20 years. However, we still need to pass this now, because if we don't pass it, we are not going to get revenue from the natural resources that we get, because we are not going to get investor. One of the key objectives of the PIB is actually to remove the uncertainty in the governance of the industry. So we can't say whether the governance is right or wrong, but when there is uncertainty, no investor wants to come in. Now when you remove the uncertainty, then you have investors that will come and invest, to come and drill, to come and explore, and to come and bring out the oil where we can now make money. And one of the things I said is imperative, not just because we either like it or not. The energy mix is changing. Analysts have actually told us that our oil is only useful in the next 15 to 20 years. Now, in the next 15 to 20 years, if you don't do anything with oil, the oil is going to be useless. Remember, we have so much coal in Nigeria. Today, are we doing anything with the coal? Somebody says that the Stone Age did not end because of lack of stone. He said the oil age too will not end because oil has finished, but because there will be no need for oil. Now energy mix is changing. People are now moving from fossil oil to renewables. UK has set a deadline of 2030 for the banning of petrol and diesel vehicles. US will probably be doing the same. China, all those countries that we actually export our oil into are doing the same. So whatever we want to do, we must make sure that we do it within the next 20 years. That's when we can get the maximum benefit from the oil that we have. And for investment, for investment to take place, it takes about 10 years to actually invest and drill and get this oil out. That means we are actually in a race against the time. So it's not just maybe we like to pass it. It has become imperative. It's either we swim now or we sink.
So you mean you're optimistic, you're very sure that the Ninth Assembly will pass this into law. And let's also look, it's a 2-in-1 question. Let's also look at what we've really lost by not passing the bill years ago. Can we really catch up with the lost opportunities?
Yeah, like I said, I'm optimistic that the National Assembly will pass this bill. Last week, I was privileged to facilitate a session with the Joint Committee of the National Assembly in Lagos. And from what I've heard from that discussion, I saw the passion from both houses, from the Senate and the House of Rep, that they're actually willing to pass this. And we are looking at first quarter of next year, maybe latest by April, all things being equal, for them to pass this. So they have that understanding. They have that desire. They know that we need to pass this. So everybody have that understanding because they know better about the revenue situation of the country, about what we are suffering as a nation. So everybody, from what I've seen, everybody is actually everybody is ready for the passage of this bill. You know that the bill cannot just be passed just one day. Now, beyond what you said earlier, the bill has actually been passed second reading in both houses. So it's been committed to the committee on at both houses. So they are working now on the clauses. So we expect to see public hearing in January, and after public hearing, they go and do their committee work. So give and take, we are hopeful that by April next year, the PIB should have been transmitted to the president. Then on the second question, in terms of what we have lost, we've lost a lot, but do we say because we have lost we should not go ahead and reform? No. I used to use this analogy that the best time to plant a tree is 20 years ago, but the next best time is today. So we can still do it today. We have so much crude oil, we have so much much gas. I was listening to analysis a few days ago that with our 36 billion barrel of oil and condensate that we have, even if we start exploring 2.5 million per day barrel of oil today, we will still not be able to explore more than 20 or 50% by 20 years time. That means because we are late already, the natural resources we have, a lot of them are actually going to waste because we did not start on time. However, what we can still do now, we can still get a lot to do with it in terms of crude. But in terms of gas as well, gas is still going to be in the energy mix for the foreseeable future. So the future is more of renewable and gas. And thank God we have about 203 trillion scope of gas. So we have large gas resources, and that's what I see as the future for this country. If you don't have gas, I would have said the future is bleak. But with the gas that we have now, I believe that if we use it well, different from the way we've used oil, if we use it for industrialization, we extract as much value from it, I'm sure we can still regain a lot of things that we've lost.
Sounds interesting. Now, you've touched on gas, and that's something I'd like you to also talk on before we go back. Now, how well are we taking advantage of the gas potentials that we have, both proven and unproven? We've heard the Minister of State for Petroleum Resources coming out to say this is the year of gas. And we see moves by government to try and make, shift that focus away from PMS. How well are we doing in maximizing our gas potential as a country?
As it is now, we have actually not maximized our potential. I think the minister has even gone beyond declaring this year as year of gas. He has actually declared the decade as a decade of gas, which I think is a very good news for everyone. From what I learned, there is no waste product from gas. Every part of gas is useful for anything. Unlike crude, you can still have waste products. In gas, from methane to butane to propane to everything is useful. So what I will just want advice is that this gas, we are not just exploring, because currently what we are having, the gas we are having in the country is mostly associated gases. Those are gases that are coming when you are prospecting for crude, when you are drilling, and the gas that come up with crude. But we have a lot of gas reserve that we have not actually taken advantage of. So we have huge that you can evenly go and prospect for gas and go and drill gas. So, and once we get this gas, we must make sure that there is value addition in country. We must not make the mistake that we have made with oil to just get this gas and ship it abroad. No. The only way we can get value from gas is to make sure there is value addition in the country. For example, from crude oil, if you sell crude oil today, is $50 now. However, from a barrel of crude oil, you can get as much as $200 from it. But however, when we just bring it up to the surface and ship it, we only get $20. For example, the mama puts with in your village or beside your office, who usually sell gari. I'm sure by the time you ask him, maybe 10 years ago, he was only selling gari, but now he sells eba. That means when he could have just made 5 naira from maybe a bucket of gari, now he's going to make like 200 because he has added value. So the same thing we must make sure that we do with our gas potential, to ensure that, and these things are not new. The government has actually embarked on, we have a gas master plan in place to actually guide the way the gas is being used. And in addition, there is gas industrialization agenda by the erstwhile president. So those are the things that are already in place. It's not that we need to go and devise new document or new strategy. The strategy are in place to actually ensure that we maximize our gas potentials.
Good. Now, the previous version of the PIB also recommends a single regulator, whilst the latest version went for dual regulators. What do you make of this?
I would think there is no one solution to everything. The objective of the industry, the single regulator, is to ensure that all the regulatory activities are embodied in just one organization. And again, that helps us. The proponents of that and those who argue in favor of that argue because of cost. When you set up a dual regulator, that means you are setting up dual entities. That means you're having two cost centers. However, if everything is centralized, you can reduce costs. And for example, we are asking that government should reduce the cost of governance. So those who argue for single regulator, we say we should have a single regulator. However, those who are proposing double regulator to have their own points as well. They believe that the midstream sector is a sector that we have not created. And like I said earlier, we need to add value. And for us to add value to our natural resource, we need a varied midstream sector. So the proponents of dual regulator believe that we need to create a separate regulator who will regulate the midstream and downstream sector. And they believe the midstream sector, and it is a fact, the midstream sector is actually different from the upstream sector. So the proponent of dual regulator thinks we need a separate regulator. So it's not about whether we have single or dual. It's just that we must get our regulatory principle and objective right. What actually are we trying to achieve? Are we trying to achieve a cross-value chain, or we are trying to divide it? Are we trying to add value? So as long as we have the objective right as a country, we can go for one single regulator, we can go for a dual regulator, we can go for multiple regulator. It doesn't really matter, apart from the cost of governance, which is a key concern. But if you ask me, there is no one size fits all.
thinking that what would you say are the indicators of a good PIB? That's finally when it's passed into law.
In my own opinion, when the PIB is passed, for me to see that this is a very good PIB, I want to see a PIB that promotes value addition in country. And for me, that's my number one. So any PIB that still encourages us to just bring the natural resource from the ground and put it in the ship and take it abroad is not a PIB. But whatever PIB must be, was make sure that there is value addition. That when we get this oil, it's refined locally. We have a various petrochemical industry. Instead of us importing all those things, we can generate a lot of primary and secondary industry. So that's one thing for me that the PIB must promote. The second one is that the PIB must be attractive, must make our industry attractive enough to bring investors. Like I said, there are other countries that are competing for these investors, and an average investor is not working on emotion; he's working on figures. So it's where you can get the best return on your money. You probably have done one business or the other before. You want to see where can you maximize your profit. So that's what investors are not. They are not carried away by emotion. So we must make sure that the PIB makes our sector to be very attractive to the industry, because even when we don't get investors, no matter what we get, we have a good governance system, we have host community, we have everything. It's like doing theory in the class without going to the lab until you get investors that will come and drill the hole and bring it to the surface. I can't say. That's the number two. Then the third one is that the PIB must ensure transparency in the industry, which is what we are lacking in both upstream, midstream, downstream now. Most of the issue we're having, especially in downstream, is the issue of transparency. So this must bring transparency. It must bring equity. It must bring bring competitiveness. The landscape must be competitive. You are not going to fix prices. It must be liberalized. It must market forces. You must encourage market forces, you must encourage people to compete, because when you compete, you are going to have a better industry. So for me, those three things are very key for me for any PIB that is going to be passed.
Let's now dig deep into sections of this very important document. What do you believe are the main objectives?
For the key objective of the PIB, number one is to actually create an effective and efficient governance system with clear mandate, with separate role for policy making and for regulation, and as well create a commercially driven and profit-oriented NOC, which is NNPC. As we have today, the law setting up the NNPC does not see NNPC as a commercial entity. So the PIB will create a commercially oriented NNPC, and that is why if you see from the bill now, NNPC is going to be NNPC Limited, which will be subject to the Kama law. The second one is that it is going to promote a harmonious relationship between the operators and the industry. That's the host community part, where we are going to make sure that the operators have license to operate. There's going to be fund that will be created to ensure that the agitation in the host and impacted community are taken care of. That's second. The third one, like I mentioned earlier, is to create a forward-looking fiscal and tax administration system in Nigeria in such a way that Nigeria optimizes revenue. And the key word here is to optimize revenue. I've had a lot of people say Nigeria needs to maximize revenue. No, we cannot maximize revenue. We can only optimize the revenue. Because when you say you want to maximize revenue, then investor can get another place where they're going to get better. So the PIB will ensure that we optimize the revenue. At the same time, balancing the risk and rewarding the risk of the investor. That's the third one. Then the other one is to create transparency, equity in the award of licenses, to make sure that the era of discriminatory, when the minister just wake up and award license is gone, to make sure that we have a competitive system in the award of licenses, in the award of leases, the award of OML and the OPL. Then to ensure, like I mentioned earlier, that there's value addition to our natural resources. These are some of the objectives of the PIB.
All right, almost finally now, we're almost there. I think there seems to be some confusion around this deregulation process of government or policy of government. We've discussed this almost all through the week. Now, would this be addressed by this document, the PIB? Anything for deregulation in it?
Well, let me say that currently we are not operating in the deregulated sector yet. Deregulation goes beyond the removal of subsidy. But again, you see government saying today that we have deregulated, then the government comes again tomorrow and say, sorry, we have not really deregulated. Yes, they are right, they have not really deregulated. What we have done is to remove subsidy. We are still far away from deregulation. For us to have deregulation, there must be level playing ground for all the people who are importing fuel. I'm not sure we can achieve deregulation with just having NNPC as the sole importer. I'm not sure we can have deregulation with having NNPC having a competitive advantage over other marketers. I'm not sure we can achieve deregulation when there's no transparency in the template, or when we are still regulating the prices. So we are not deregulated. We are not operating in the deregulated sector yet. We've just only removed subsidy. But again, I have a fear, or even the subsidy that we removed, because let me digress a bit. Last week we had, or was it this week, that the minister said NNPC has agreed to remove 5 naira from the cost of PMS. So my fear is, where is this 5 naira coming from? Is it that the cost, what the NNPC or whatever they are charging us before has inefficiency in it? Are they overcharging us before? Or where is that 5 naira coming from? Or are they taking a revenue hit? If they are taking a profit hit and revenue hit, that means how long will they continue to do that? Because when crude oil goes up, for example, the crude oil has gone to $50 today. When it goes up, does it mean we are going to go back to the era of a subsidy and under recovery, or whatever the name it may be called? So for deregulation, we must make sure that efficiency, and we reward efficiency and not just fixing prices. Then in terms of PIB, whether it addresses deregulation, the PIB actually, there is no PEF, Petroleum Equalization Fund in the PIB. There is no triple PRA. There is a downstream, midstream and downstream regulatory authority in the PIB. However, there is some contradiction that I see in the PIB, which I believe that the National Assembly is going to take care of. When I look at Section 205, it says that the price of fuel is going to be determined by market forces. Then again, when you get to 206, it says that the authority is going to have the power to fix prices. So for me, these are contradictory clauses or sections within the PIB, which I believe that the National Assembly is actually going to correct. So I believe that the PIB is actually going to put end to this deregulation, because once these agencies are not there, not that it will, it's just that we have to, because we can't afford to do subsidy. However, whatever price we are charging to consumers, we must make sure that it's efficient pricing, and we don't have to pay through our nose, and we don't have to fix prices. There are a lot of inefficiencies that I see within the last template that we saw in November, which I believe if we actually have an efficient system, we should not have this. Because I look at the template in March and the template that we have in November, there are about 30% increase in the distribution margin. Where is this 30% coming from? So are we paying for, as consumers, are we paying for inefficiency in the system? So it's a very tough issue, and it's something that is agitating the mind of people. And I think that is where we need a strong regulator, or the Consumer Protection Council, to actually come forward and not to fix price, but to monitor that whatever is being passed on the consumer is not bearing the burden of inefficiency in the system. They must make sure that margin is not guaranteed to any player. Right. That any player must earn his margin by being efficient through the value chain and at the pump.
Oh, well, it's really very interesting there. Breaking it really down for everyone to understand what it means. Can I, just in 60 seconds, I want you to just share your thoughts on this. Price of crude looking very good, should be positive for Nigeria. But with the situation we find ourselves, what do you think will happen as crude continues to go to the high side?
When price of oil goes up, it's always a double whammy. It's always a mixed feeling for Nigeria. On one hand, we are going to get more revenue as government, but on the other hand, that means we are going to be paying more for fuel. Or if you cannot pass it to the consumer, that means there's going to be subsidy again. So until for us to actually avoid this, we must make sure that we refine our crude oil locally. When we refine our crude oil locally, we will not be subject to all those prices and the dollar fluctuation and everything. So the solution is for us to refine it locally and for us to actually create more industry, petrochemical industry, which you can get from crude oil. So it's a mixed feeling when price goes up. On one hand, we're happy. On the other hand, we are looking at how much we are going to be paying for at the pump for PMS.
All right, Amos, thank you very much for your time there. Oil and gas management consultant, saying it the way it is and making real sense of issues around PIB, Mr. Michael Faniron. I appreciate your time. Thank you.
Thank you.